For years, there were murmurs going around behind the scenes. Rumor had it that Jimmy had secretly arranged an inheritance plan that would guarantee his fortune would remain in the family. However, the distinction between personal and ministry funds became increasingly hazy over time. Several people connected to the family claimed that Jimmy Swaggart had more personal holdings than only church property. According to reports, his estate contained private jets, upscale residences, exclusive investment accounts, and even a portion of foreign real estate holdings that were never revealed in official ministry records. His personal wealth could have likely exceeded $30 million, if not more, according to some estimates. This is where things become fascinating, though. People have long assumed that his wife Frances Swaggart, their only son Donnie, and their grandson Gabriel would all receive an equal share of the fortune, or at the very least, be included in a clear will. But as Jimmy Swaggart's power started to wane and the ministry was taken over by new people, there were queries. Where had the will gone? Why were important members of the family kept in the dark? And why did the ministry's successor apparent, Gabriel Swaggart, keep quiet? What became of the enormous wealth Jimmy had accumulated? Furthermore, why is Gabriel only now, in 2025, coming out to end the silence? At this point, the tension starts to release and the truth starts to come to light. Growing up, Gabriel Swaggart was burdened by a name that was synonymous with worldwide ministry, evangelical aristocracy, and immense wealth. Gabriel was always expected to continue the tradition because he was the son of Donnie Swaggart and the grandson of Jimmy Swaggart. And up until today, he largely did. During a recent live feed of a local pastor's round table, Gabriel made an unexpected revelation that shocked everyone in attendance. My grandfather used to say that we will handle this together. However, things altered at some point. This was not intended. It was said that silence descended in the room. Gabriel was publicly questioning his inherited legacy for the first time. The division of authority and inheritance inside the Swaggart family, not the spiritual mission. Insiders knew exactly who he was talking about, even though he didn't mention names. Donnie Swaggart, his father. According to family sources, Gabriel had become more and more irritated over time. Gabriel has allegedly been left out of important financial choices, even though he serves as the public face of Generation Ministry, oversees services, and assists in managing Sun Life Broadcasting Network's daily operations. The more profound problem is the enigmatic loss or potential rerouting of Jimmy Swaggart's personal wealth after he started to withdraw from ministry activities as he became older and his health deteriorated. According to reports, Gabriel learned that significant assets had been covertly moved into Donnie's name and that other decisions were also unknown to Frances Swaggart, Jimmy's wife and the ministry's long-serving financial administrator. The money wasn't the only thing that worried Gabriel. Transparency, trust, and long-standing pledges that appeared to have been broken were at issue. Gabriel added, "At a closed-door leadership retreat, I was told we carry the torch as a family, but now I feel like I've been handed smoke," according to an unnamed participant. Even more startling was Gabriel's admission that, despite years of assurances that he would assist Donnie in managing Jimmy Swaggart's estate, he had no access to important trust paperwork, property transfers, or financial information pertaining to it. Because of his public dedication and loyalty, as well as his name, Gabriel was seen by many in the ministry as the logical next in line. Thus, when he started to quietly voice his displeasure, long-standing partners and church elders began to inquire, for what reason was Gabriel being ignored? And why were some of Jimmy's most precious assets flowing into private holding corporations connected to Donnie Swaggart when they were purportedly intended to support the family and the ministry? One thing became evident. This was no longer a philosophical dispute about the ministry. This has to do with heritage, control, and maybe treachery. The true twist, however, is when Frances Swaggart herself begins to question where the money went. As we'll learn in the upcoming chapter, Frances Swaggart was more than just Jimmy Swaggart's wife for more than 50 years. Behind the scenes, she was the driving force, renowned for her business savvy, sophisticated demeanor, and fiery temper. Frances oversaw many of the financial choices that made it possible for Jimmy Swaggart Ministries, JSM, to prosper even in the midst of scandals, while serving as the executive producer of the ministry's television division. Frances was more than just a preacher's wife to their following. She contributed to the empire's design. However, What occurs when a kingdom's queen is forced to leave the palace she assisted in building? Frances Swaggart may have been shut out of the very money her husband supposedly left behind, according to several insiders and secret church board rumors. Despite her decades of dedication, Frances supposedly found herself locked out of important accounts and trust arrangements as financial control began to consolidate around Donnie Swaggart when Jimmy's health started to deteriorate and he gradually faded from public view. What was different? According to others, Donnie quickly reorganized important financial holdings once Jimmy resigned as leader, transferring assets into private trusts that even Frances could not access directly. If accurate, it would imply that the lady who contributed to the establishment and administration of the entire ministry enterprise lost her legal claim to the wealth she had previously managed. Frances, who is now in her late 80s, is also no longer keeping silent. According to insiders, in an attempt to get clarity on the matter, she has started questioning employees, scheduling private meetings with financial experts, and even making vague references to potential legal action. Astute viewers saw Frances clearly upset during a section during a recent Sun Life television program, a rare departure from her calm manner. She apparently confronted Donnie about manipulating her out of the bequest during a contentious family talk the night before filming, which some believe is connected to the incident. She allegedly stated, "This is not what your father wanted." Although certainly not unexpected, this family breakup is upsetting to people in the ministry. Many ministries have been broken apart by power disputes over money and legacy, and it seems that even the Swaggarts are not exempt. Even more concerning, Frances allegedly learned that some property titles that were thought to be jointly held or in Jimmy's name had been altered in recent years without any apparent reason. Millions of dollars worth of assets might have already changed hands without her knowledge or approval. According to several people, Frances is turning to Gabriel, the grandson she feels still upholds the principles Jimmy fought for, while Donnie is keeping quiet. Could the Swaggart dynasty's power structure change as a result of Frances and Gabriel's budding alliance? Or is Donnie going to tighten his hold even more? Stay tuned as we examine Donnie Swaggart's purported actions to obtain everything and the reasons why some think he's getting ready for a court battle in the upcoming chapter. Donnie Swaggart was supposedly maneuvering in the background while Gabriel was preaching and Frances was controlling the spotlight. Some people now perceive those silent actions as a well-thought-out financial takeover, something that might abandon his own mother and son. Let's go back. Donnie and his father, Jimmy, were the Swaggart family's public spokespersons for many years. Many believed Donnie would only keep his job, not grow it, as Jimmy grew older and started to take a more active role in day-to-day operations. However, that's where things might have changed. Legal documents seen by former family accountants and insiders claim that Donnie started moving financial assets years before Jimmy was fully retired. According to reports, Donnie created a complex network of shell companies and trusts in collaboration with a group of outside financial experts. Some have ties to personal wealth accounts, while others are connected to the ministry. Despite being lawful, these trusts might have successfully shifted ownership of bank accounts, real estate, and media royalties away from the original ministry leadership. According to a former employee of JSM's finance division, it was a calculated but gradual move. Not even Frances had access to everything that had previously been under JSM, which began to appear under Donnie's private trust. Among the purported reassignments were the covert placement of ministry planes and luxury cars under a holding company that identified Donnie rather than JSM as the primary shareholder. A Texas ranch that was allegedly owned by Jimmy and Frank in retirement was sold and then bought back by another company. Older gospel records, books, and sermons by Jimmy Swaggart had their royalties transferred into new accounts that might now be controlled by Donnie. Here's the twist though. It is unclear if Jimmy approved of these alterations or if he was coerced in his last years of life, because a number of these occurred while he was still alive and mentally competent. Even worse, according to insiders, Donnie has obstructed Gabriel and Frances's access to legal documents pertaining to these modifications. According to reports, Frances asked their long-standing accountant for financial statements, but received no response. Gabriel has tried to meet with attorneys that Donnie supposedly hired, but he was denied access without providing a reason. What makes Donnie do this then, since he was the only one who supported Jimmy during the televangelism scandals. Legal actions and reaction. Some people theorize that he feels he is the sole legitimate heir. Others suggest that Gabriel's rising fame and his father's legacy had long overshadowed Donnie, and this was his attempt to take back control. Concerns are also mounting that Donnie might be setting himself up for a significant rebranding of the ministry that completely cuts out Gabriel and Francis. They don't want you to know the surprising portion. According to an unnamed source, Donnie is already in negotiations to sell off part of JSM's foreign holdings, potentially in order to finance a more contemporary solo brand media endeavor. That entails possibly tearing apart parts of Jimmy Swaggart Ministries itself. In addition to removing family from the legacy, Francis and Gabriel are both beginning to resist as the walls draw in, but it could be too late. In the following chapter, we examine how Gabriel and Francis might be getting ready to defend themselves both legally and spiritually. The Swaggart family quarrel is finally leaking into the public eye once the hush was broken. Francis and Gabriel are no longer merely occupying the background as attention turns to Donnie Swaggart's purported power grab. What started out as an internal family issue is quickly turning into a high-stakes public confrontation about loyalty, legacy, and millions of dollars in hidden money. Frances Swaggart has reportedly started putting up her own legal team, according to people familiar with the matter. Although she may have originally believed that Jimmy Swaggart Ministries' internal operations would be managed internally, that confidence now seems to be eroded. According to reports, she is investigating whether her isolation from important financial decisions violates her fiduciary duties and marital rights, particularly if Jimmy's estate was changed without her express consent. Francis is accused of privately telling confidants, "They believe that because I'm elderly, I won't fight. She's not alone, but they don't know me." Once regarded as the ministry's successor apparent, Gabriel is now its most outspoken opponent in private. Several small group pastor forums and smuggled recordings have caught his irritation, bewilderment, and sadness over the state of the family matters, even if he has refrained from going completely public in television broadcasts. And he's gaining backing. It has been claimed that a number of senior church elders, many of whom have served under Jimmy for decades, are supporting Gabriel because they think he has the humility and genuine spiritual vision required to guide the ministry into the next generation. They believe Donnie's actions are more control-oriented than ecclesiastical and more corporate than Christ-centered. However, the road ahead won't be simple. Internal conflicts are currently plaguing the ministry, with employees reportedly being pressured to make silent decisions that jeopardize their reputations, allegiance, and careers. Board meetings are become stressful. Worst of all, the ministry's reputation is being questioned by longtime patrons. A nightmare for any evangelical dynasty, rumors of the family dispute are leaking into the media and social media. One thing is certain: when alliances change and legal documents are created, nothing will ever be the same for the Swaggart family. A name that was formerly linked to harmony, wealth, and eloquent sermons now faces the possibility of being remembered for conflict, secrets, and finally shattered silence. And the world of Christian broadcasting could be rocked by what follows. In conclusion, a legacy is at stake. The Swaggart family tale is about to embark on its most contentious chapter, moving from an empire founded on fervent preaching and worldwide revival to a struggle for truth and openness. Is it true that Donnie Swaggart kept everything for himself? Was Francis excluded on purpose? And will Gabriel follow in his grandfather's footsteps or leave it all behind permanently? These are the questions that plague an entire faith-based enterprise, not simply a family. To ensure you don't miss the next exciting update, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below if you thought this story was as startling as we did. Also, keep in mind that truth always finds its